Right, we are on to the next topic, which is the Cleveland Browns. Now, Ollie, this is something I believe you're doing a big article on, so I'll let the floor be yours.
It is. That's the problem, though. I have too many thoughts, and they all smash together. And my focus has mainly been on them offensively. I think you got to say about them defensively. They've been really good. They're 8th in DVOA right now. They have the talent to probably be the best team, the best defense in football. They will, by the end of the season, almost certainly finish in the top 5. They're just not fully healthy, all the spots. They've been missing guys every single week. The big issue is obviously the offense. And did you watch the All-22 of this game?
I only watched the 40-minute game twice. I didn't get to do the All-22.
What was that opening script? What is going on with this team? One of the big points I made in this piece, which I think is a fun one to discuss, just more the philosophy than it is necessarily the Browns, and then we can get into them with that. Everyone knows their issue, right? They're not as fun and creative on offense anymore. Their tackle spots stink. Need we say more? Like, that is the big issue. And then Baker doesn't trust his protection, is seeing ghosts, and is getting rid of the ball too quick. Fair enough?
Yep.
Right?
Then add 35 penalties to 352 yards, the most in the NFL.
Thank you. Their pressure rate has gone up to 31%. They were 11th best in the league last year. Now they're like 27th or something. So they are getting pressured more. But one of the giant things for me is just they don't seem to have a coherent philosophy. Sounds dumb, but you just take someone like Odell. They've dropped Odell on their team, right? And I really do believe this, is that they are forcing so many things to him. You look at the way he was used, his first 4 targets the other night, right? A hitch out of empty, where Baker basically panicked and threw it to him when it probably should have been picked. He was in double coverage. A slant, the RPO slant they ran twice, which I think was inside zone tag with the backside slant, which was the one where they have the tight end lines up outside Odell. They bring the tight end in to basically be a H-back. It reveals the coverage, and then Baker flips the ball to Odell, and they hope he gets one of those 80-yard after the catch type ones. Don't hate that play. That's fine. 2 backside slants to him. That's pretty good. Then a bubble screen that went nowhere. That is ham-handedly forcing the ball to him because you know you've got to get him touches. Either because you think he's going to moan or because he's one of the best football players walking on earth and it's a good idea to get him the ball. But it's not just... I really feel like you go back to the best example is Moss with the Patriots, right? Great receivers should just be great within the flow of the offense. And my favorite example right now is DeAndre Hopkins. He gets a couple, 2 or 3, probably shouldn't throw backside shoulder throws because he's DeAndre Hopkins and we've got to get him the ball, right? He gets a couple of those a game. But for the most part, he's just open within the flow of the system because he's great and great receivers get open.
Yeah, and there's no bigger example of Mayfield trying to force throws. I would regard him as one of the most accurate throws of the ball I've seen in a very long time. Mm-hmm. He's averaging 56% of his passes are completed this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know pressure's been a problem with that as well, but he's straight out missing, which, happens when you try and force the ball.
There's been so much... I tell people again, go watch those first 4 targets to Odell, and the hitch one from empty, which I think was the first time they went in empty that game. Watch how sloppy and lazy that throw is. There's just no urgency. And it's like, I've got to flip the ball to Odell, we'll move on. No urgency, just not asked. Yeah, this is easy. You're playing against Michael Brockers, Dante Fowler, Samson Ebukman, and Aaron Donald with a cheap offensive line.
Aaron Donald and Clay Matthews, actually, they got creative, were crashing from the inside. Mm-hmm. And you saw Baker sliding into his tackles, who were awful. And he was just walking into more pressure, because obviously you got Donald coming at you half a second after the ball is snapped. Mm-hmm. So it just turned into this nightmare scenario for the Browns where Mayfield got happy feet. I've not seen that in him much, maybe 2 weeks, maybe week 1 as well. He couldn't keep his eyes downfield. He was running into pressure. It was just...
He's
completely
fidgety.
Off schedule.
I think fidgety is the word. He looks uncomfortable from the snap of the ball because he doesn't trust anything up front. With the lack of coherent joined up thinking between the pieces they have is confusing me. I know Njoku's out. I know Callaway's out. I know Hunt's out. They still have Chubb, so Hunt being lost isn't as big a deal. But last year, remember all the motions and shifts and the fun in the games, and the ball goes here, but the guy goes there, and all the stuff, and the jet motion. We all know how much motion and play action impacts offensive results. They didn't run a jet motion until the first play of the second quarter against the Rams, and it was called back for a penalty. There's just nothing. It's just, we don't have a good offensive line. So how do you usually, work around that? You can use play action to confuse people. You can hope that they're good at running the ball, that you can knock them back and get people scared about that. You can kind of confuse them with where the ball is, jet motions and so on. Or you can get rid of the ball quick, go empty and just try and hurry up and get it out that way. But there's just nothing that isn't like, this is where Baker's going to be. The ball's going here. Please don't hit him.
Yeah.
They
ran 10 draw plays this game. I mean, is that because of Aaron Donald? They want to try and stand him up? That's all what I was trying to think of when watching this is, I think it was 12 actually, not 10 they ran. Jeez. Obviously, we'll move to the 4th and 9 call.
that was the one.
But this was obviously a game plan for them because they ran 12 of them and then used it for the first time in NFL history on 4th and 9.
The thing is, and we'll never know, because what we have here, and I wrote this in my piece that's coming out tomorrow, so I'm not going to read from myself, but I'm going to go and try and find the point I made because I made it more articulately.
Plug the piece, come on. Ollie.
Plug the piece, theguardian.com. The problem is that my writing for The Guardian isn't nerdy, whereas the stuff I like and we talk about is nerdy. You know, it's more on the surface, let's say, for the everyman. One of the biggest things here is how much do you buy into Freddie Kitchens doesn't have every day to spend focusing on, the Cleveland's first downs now. Now he's running a whole program. He's got to worry about uniforms. He's got to worry about travel and so on and so forth. I tend to think that when he's presented with if he's running it like any normal program, that he has plenty of time to have input in the game plan, particularly the opening script, right? Maybe he gets away from a little on game days. He gets used to it. Kyle Shanahan had that issue when he first started with the 49ers. But he has his overall philosophy, approach, plays in the playbook, and then opening script, which, by the way, when you're Todd Monken and you present an opening script and Freddie Kitchens says, go fuck yourself, take 5 of those out, that kind of dictates where you think the coach's thoughts are going for the week, does it not?
Yeah.
So I don't really buy that much. And I thought that his quote, which is the one I'm struggling to find right now from my piece, which was essentially like, don't blame anyone else, none of the other coaches, not Baker, none of the players, it's all about me, rings so hollow. And it so is fraudulent of a guy who was like spent all offseason reading books about accountability and how to be a management guy in 2019. Because that's just not true. You cannot go into a locker room that has Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon and Denzel Ward and these guys who've won stuff in college and been really successful their entire lives and are at the peak of their profession and convince them that it's you and not your 2 starting tackles. They know. They know the offense doesn't look the same.
That's not who Freddie Kitchens is it? It's not who he is.
No.
There's these documentaries, these NFL films on his amazing journey, obviously the heart stuff. And he came back from all the heart issues and he says, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be genuine. And not seeing that from him at the moment is upsetting.
It's just, you cannot fool a locker room. They know. They know the offense doesn't look the same. They know their tackles aren't good enough. They know Baker's not playing well enough. They know this. And Baker knows this.
So this week, they are going to Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Massive divisional game. What can they do to get this right? Because the Ravens defense are not going to make it easy for them, that's for sure.
No, and I think the big thing you got to look at with them is they've had 9 starters miss at least one game, either through injury or suspension. That's a crazy number through 3 weeks. And these are not low-key starters. This is Ward and Randall and Njoku. These are big pieces that they're missing. So that's a big part of it. They also have the 5th easiest remaining schedule the rest of the way. When you pull up the schedule, which I did to write this piece, I was like, Jesus, Baltimore next week is tough. And then 2 weeks time, it's 2 or 3 weeks, like they go to the page, it's like, Jesus, this is not looking good for Freddie. But then when you go into the nerdy analytics, and Football Outsiders has their Dave metric, which projects out the season based on current DVOA and strength of schedule, they actually have the 5th easiest the rest of the way. So I think they can right the ship, and 9-7 might be enough to get them into the playoffs, which is the goal here, and which I think anything less than that is a failure. I know it's Cleveland, but the expectations were so high.
I mean, they were Super Bowl winners, weren't they, before a ball was snapped this preseason?
Before the sophomore quarterback took a snap.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive game for Baltimore and Cleveland. What the Browns have going for them is that Tim Williams and Tyrus Bowser have been awful for the Ravens. So it'll be totally down to Judon McPhee. The old guys are going to have to play every snap. So Robinson and Hubbard might get some relief there. They're not being bad on purpose. So, they play this team 2 times a year. They might know how. They might have had something saved on the game plan for these guys. So this is going to be a really interesting watch. I had a friend who's a Browns fan. So he said to me, we could legitimately go 1-6 to start the season, but make the playoffs. So as you say about that schedule.
I think, because the AFC is so tough because the Steelers situation and then the Dolphins are throwing games, basically. We could be in for one of those 8-8, 9-7, someone sneaks in. I was going to ask you about this. What do you think of there's the big online thing now. I don't know if you've read much about their use of personnel, basically. If you dig into their personnel figures this year, and week 3 was a giant outlier because of the Njoku injury compared to the other 2 weeks, so it's been a bit overblown. But they're basically playing in 11 personnel more than the Rams did last year, which, as we know, the Rams was like 96%. It was absurd what the Rams did last year, who this year, by the way, down to like 84, 85. So all that stuff about like, this is how you play football in 2019 and Sean McVay's a visionary and all that. Even Sean McVay's like, yeah, that's not true. You just get good players on the field and we use them however we can. When they're in 12 personnel, this year and last year, they gave up a sack every 14 plays. And this year and last year in 12 personnel, they only averaged 3.2 yards per carry. So the thing that should give them some extra help because you're chipping or you can be more formationally diverse is being a real impediment for them. So is that a breakdown of personnel, do you think? Is that Freddie Kitchens doesn't know how to design 2 tight end sets and to build his protections around that, which happens in football? I don't think people understand that. People have blind spots.
And he did come from Arizona.
And he did come from Arizona. It's all starting to build. Do you think that they are better off just ditching it and trying to free the box through design and through personnel and then attacking that way? How would you go about it?
As you say, with the force into Odell stuff, I mean, that's pushed them into 11 personnel as well. I mean, you've got Jarvis, Odell. My boy Rashard Higgins, what's happened to him this year? He can play, man. But as you say, going into this 2 tight end sets, I mean, with Njoku out now, will they do it much more? I don't think so. So that might almost help them. Sounds silly, but it could free them up into a different system. I think, and knowing Freddie Kitchens' character, there's no Jimmy Smith, there's no Tavon Young for the Ravens. They could come out gunslinging.
Yeah.
And that would be interesting to see. They just got torched by the Chiefs, but every team in the NFL gets torched by the Chiefs, so there's not too much looking into that. But you've got guys at the bottom of the depth chart like Maurice Candy, who just doesn't know what he's doing out there for the Ravens right now. So you know the Ravens aren't going to let you run the ball with too much success. So I think they're going to spread it out.
What's interesting is last year when they played in 11 personnel, when Kitchens took over, so not the Hugh Jackson debacle, but when Kitchens started calling plays, they had a 52% success rate. So they basically were guaranteed a couple of first downs in every single drive. But if you remember to the film rather than the analytics of last year, they just lifted Oklahoma's playbook, they dropped it in pro football and said, Baker knows these things, we should maybe do what more teams should do, which is the common sense thing, and run some football plays, because football ain't that complex, the guy we're asking to run him knows. And then this year, there's far less, it's like Kitchen's like, now I'm going to put more of my imprint on the team. But it's like that stuff worked, and I get that coaches outthink themselves and think it's on tape and that offense isn't that hard to deduce. When every play has 3 options, it's still really hard to figure out. And if you have good plays, you're going to win games. I think that he's overthought this thing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. I mean, this game, I mean, we know there's wins coming up later on the schedule, but this is huge. If the Ravens can go to 3-1, the Browns 1-3, we don't know what the Steelers are doing. They seem dead. The Bungles are irrelevant. This is a massive game, and it's so much intrigue on it.
This is an off-the-tape game, because you can love the schematics all you want, but if they lose, people start to question him, which they have not done yet. And if he's doing the shit that we talked about before, where he's taking all the accountability, but it's clearly vague and vapid and everyone knows it's not really true, that's how you lose the locker room.